episode 3 of The Monthly Blend, a video podcast which seeks to bring together the best minds, ideas, and game changers to drive innovation and entrepreneurship throughout the Washington, D.C. metro region, otherwise known as the DMV. I'm Tian Wong, CEO of Opus 8 and managing general partner of the Phoenix Fund, which invests in early stage tech, health tech, marketing tech, and fintech companies. My co-host is Anthony Millen, founder and chair of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, which is a revolutionary legal services platform. Anthony is also a general partner of the Urban Us family of venture capital funds. Today, we are super excited to bring you a roundtable conversation with 6 of the nation's top entrepreneurship educators and university entrepreneurship heads. These are the leaders at their respective universities throughout the DC metro region. Joining us in alphabetical order are Jonathan Aberman, Carl Brown, Jim Chung, Holly DeArmond, Jeff Reed, and Tommy White. And I want to say a couple words about each guest and then let them sort of introduce themselves. But Jonathan Aberman is the Dean of the School of Business and Technology at Marymount University. He's a very well-known venture capitalist, economic catalyst, author, speaker, attorney, media personality, and rock star guitarist. And he's played a huge role in the regional entrepreneurship ecosystem as an investor, as well as founder of Tandem NSI and the Tandem Product Academy. He's also the host of syndicated radio show What's Working in Washington. Carl Brown is the state executive director of the District of Columbia's Small Business Development Center on the campus of Howard University. Carl has a wealth of small business development knowledge, over 25 years of experience in consulting, training, HR, sales and marketing, both in the public and private sectors. Additionally, Carl is the host of popular radio talk show, The Small Business Report, which airs on Sirius XM channel 141 every Thursday. Jim Chung is Associate Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship at the George Washington University, where he oversees all entrepreneurship activities for the university's students and ecosystem. Jim has over 20 years of experience working with startups, having worked at Knowledge Cube Ventures and Ink Tank Ventures, both up in Cambridge, Mass., as well as serving as the director of the Venture Accelerator at the University of Maryland's MTech. Holly DeArmond is managing director of the University of Maryland's Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship at the Robert H. Smith School of Business, which is one of the nation's oldest and most esteemed university entrepreneurship programs. Holly's been with Dingman for 6 years, and prior to that, for 5 years, was the associate director of the university marketing for the University of Maryland. Next is Jim Reed, founding director of the Georgetown Entrepreneurship Initiative, which he founded 11 years ago. Jeff is a true pioneer of university entrepreneurship world for over 2 decades. 23 years ago, he founded the Venture Capital Investment Competition while serving as the executive director of the University of North Carolina's Center for Entrepreneurial Studies. He was there for 8 years. And last but not least, we have Tommy White, who is the interim director of the AU Center for Innovation at the American University. Tommy has been with the Kogod School of Business at AU for the past 7 years as a professor and also as co-director of the AUCI Entrepreneurship Incubator for 5 years. Tommy was also an active angel investor, and prior to coming to AU, was co-founder, CEO, and director of the Institute for Public-Private Partnerships for 15 years. Welcome, guys, and thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to go around the horn, starting with Jonathan, in terms of just a brief introduction of yourselves and your program and what you guys are doing to drive entrepreneurship forward in the region.
You want a brief introduction?
Jonathan's bio is like 4 pages.
No, that'll be a first. First of all, your introduction made me feel like I must be a really old guy or exhausted or both. But I really appreciate what you're doing. And Anthony and Tian, thank you for doing this. This is important for the region. As I'm sure many of you know, I've been in the venture capital industry for about 25 years, and you might ask, why would a VC become the dean of a business school? And I definitely have my moments when I ask that question too. But the reality is that it's actually been a very interesting opportunity to, we combined, before I turned up, the schools of business and technology into one school, and we've now recently added the School of Art and Design. So as of January, I'll be the Dean of the College of Business Innovation, Leadership and Technology. So we'll have the creatives and entrepreneurs, business people, and tech people all under my umbrella. And I've seen a lot of nodding because you know how hard it is to coordinate across university programs like this. So the great news is when I have a meeting with the other deans to talk about, hey, to do something, there are no other deans. I just have to get my faculty to go along. So it's exciting. A lot of what we've been doing here at Marymount has been to try to fill the parts of the niche, parts of the economy that I'm in a position to fill because of my prior life running Tandem and Amplify Ventures. So, we're doing the stuff that you would expect we're all doing around entrepreneurial education and program development. We've launched entrepreneurship certificates and undergraduate and graduate level. We're calling it entrepreneurship at the graduate level because we think that many more of our graduates, since we do a lot of cyber and AI and so forth, they're going to be focused on innovation inside organizations. So we're doing all that stuff and, doing the things around student engagement that all of us are doing. But we're also focusing here because of my prior work with Tandem, and TN's involved with this as well. We're working with the state to do the Tandem Product Academy again. We've got a cohort of 18 companies right now that we're helping to pivot. I'm working with TN and Mark Walsh, Gene Rickers, and Ben Foster, Eric Baumgartner, and others to work on that. And we're also doing various things with the state around trying to address tech talent and workforce creation through non-traditional education. Point being is that, as I'm sure you're going to hear from everybody, this is such a big, hairy thing. How do we change the region's perception nationally around how entrepreneurial it really is? I mean, battle I fought when we attracted Amazon as an example, and getting to understand we're not just a bunch of bureaucrats, that we are intensely entrepreneurial, but there's aspects to it, both the students and industry. And, most of us on this call know each other already, and we've been fighting the good fight forever. And it's really exciting to see how far we're coming. There, under 5 minutes.
Terrific. Thank you, Jonathan. How about you, Carl? Welcome.
All right. Well, hey, I love to talk, so I'm going to try and keep it on 5 for you. But yeah, I'm over at the School of Business at Howard University. I'm actually a graduate of Howard University, and I started my tenure as a student in 1979. And that is when the Small Business Development Center was established on the campus of Howard University in 1979, and it's been there ever since. So we've been there about 42 years now, and it's a wonderful thing. So I've come back and now have the pleasure and the honor of actually leading that center. And over the years, because initially when it was established, I didn't even know it was there. But I was in the school of business, but I didn't know it was even there. So, but over the years, I learned that it was there. And as a contract officer in this region, and I've worked in the private sector and the public sector on the federal, state, and local levels, and and again in the private sector. But I would always look for quality, good contractors to do the work that I had to do for my clients within the government or in the private sector for my company. And so we would always partner with the Small Business Development Center and other organizations so I can data mine their database of companies so that I can utilize some of them. And what we found is that a lot of them needed some assistance. And a lot of them that came through the door not even knowing about the Small Business Development Center would come to me, and they would start talking, and I would say, well, let me look at your marketing collateral, and they would have none. Or their business card, they would scratch out one number and put in another number. Well, as a contract officer, they looked shaky and risky to use, so I couldn't use those people. So I would always refer folks over to the Small Business Development Center. And then when the opportunity presented itself for me to lead the center, I took full advantage of it. Instead of retiring, I went over there and have started a new life and brought a whole lot to the campus. So we are part of a national network. So we're not alone. There are 62 lead centers around the country in Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. So we work cohesively, and I actually was elected to the board of directors for the America's Small Business Development Centers. So I'm doing 2 hats right now as a board member and as the executive director or state director, as they know around the state. So what do? We do free confidential counseling, free workshops or webinars at this point, loan package review, industry research for our clients, and we also work with them on international trade. So those are some of the things that we do, and I'm looking forward to the next set of questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Carl. Next up, Jim Chung with GW.
Thanks, Tian, and thanks, Anthony. So I run the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at GW, which has been around for a little over 10 years now. Our main mission is to help our students, faculty, and alumni get their research, ideas, inventions out of the labs and classrooms out into the real world. So we've done a number of different programs to support them, including the new venture competition, which is one of the top 3 largest competitions in the country. Last year, we gave out over $500,000 in cash and in-kind prizes to our student startups. We have a program called the Summer Startup Accelerator and the Innovate GW program, which is part of the National Science Foundation I-Corps network of programs, and I'll talk about that in a second. We also have a regional focus as well. Working on this new initiative around an innovation district, really trying to bring industry and research together at GW to foster startups and other innovations. We have a Wells Fargo Foundation grant to bring entrepreneurship training to underserved populations in DC. We help the Virginia ICAP program and a number of different accelerators in Virginia to bring the lean startup approach to their educational programs around entrepreneurship there. And we're one of the universities in the NSF DC I-Corps node, which is the lean startup training program that's run by the National Science Foundation. That's probably now the world's largest technology accelerator. It's in over 100 universities. And it's really focused around getting researchers to do the lean startup customer discovery necessary to see if their inventions actually have some kind of commercialization potential. And my colleagues on the panel here have all been involved in the I-Corps as well. And we have increasingly a global perspective as well. We run a lot of different lean innovation and entrepreneurship training programs for other countries. I think at this point we've done probably over 15 countries. Right now, for example, we're running 3 programs for Korea. There are 83 startups from Korean universities taking one of our programs, learning how to do customer discovery in the United States, which has been a challenge since everything has turned virtual now. But it's been great. We are working on turning that into a global network of our different partners, and so we're trying to meld all of these programs together and really create a great community around what we're doing here at GW.
Great, thank you, Jim, and congratulations on being ranked number 3 largest business plan competitions in the country. And our next guest, Holly DeArmond from the Dingman Center. Congratulations to you too, Holly. I saw that Pitch Dingman competition was ranked 13th in the country. So we have some good representation on this call here. So Holly, can you take a few minutes and fill it?
Sure. Yeah, we love rankings in academia, so love those rankings. But thank you. Thanks for having me, Tian and Anthony. So yeah, I'm managing director of the Dingman Center, and like Tian said in the intro, we've been around a while. And I have to give a shout out to former Smith School Dean Rudy Lamone, who's an institution in entrepreneurship education himself. Launched our center, in the late 80s with Mr. Dingman. So yeah, we've been at this a while, but we like to call ourselves the oldest startup in town because we, always iterating and always pivoting, always raising money, all of those kinds of things. So, but really our focus in where we are now with the Dingman Center is on student ventures. And so our mission is very centered on helping, equipping, empowering, and educating students about what it means to be an entrepreneur so entrepreneurial skills, but also focusing on business principles, because at the University of Maryland, we're very lucky. There's a lot of units on campus that are focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. And really where we're focused as Dingman is on the business side of things. So to that end, similar to the programs that Jim and others have mentioned, we have a pretty robust Pitch Dingman competition, Shark Tank style competition, where students from all across campus pitch for, $65,000 in funding. We also run a summer accelerator where students would forego the traditional internship that they're encouraged to do and work on their own business for the summer, where they get seed funding, coaching, workshops, and typically co-working space at the WeWork in College Park, but not this summer. We were all virtual on Zoom, as everyone else was. And we also have a pretty robust Ladies First initiative. 5 years ago now, we made a commitment to increase the number of female students who were trying entrepreneurship. And we've learned a lot. And I'm glad to say that, we went from having about 25% women in the programs to now this year it's around 42% in the programs. But, what we've learned is it's very focused on soft skills that women need, addressing the barriers that female founders face when they are, launching a growth company. So that is also a differentiator for us among the campus. But yeah, we at Maryland, like I said, we have MTech in the engineering school that's really working with more tech companies, and we have UM Ventures, who is doing a lot with economic development. So it's a pretty large ecosystem just on our campus. But so yeah, that's, I guess, enough on Dingman for now.
Terrific. Thank you so much for that overview.
Yeah.
We have Jeff Reed, who is with Georgetown University. Jeff.
Hey, Tian, thanks so much for doing this. Glad to be here. So I run the Georgetown Entrepreneurship Initiative. Georgetown University's 230-something-year-old, Jesuit institution here in DC, and our Jesuit roots inform a lot of what we do. We actually believe entrepreneurship is one of the world's most powerful forces for good. And at a macro level, what I'm trying to do is create a culture and a community at our university that really embraces entrepreneurship. So we have three kind of key pillars to our mission. The first is with our students. We believe that what we would like to do is instill an entrepreneurial mindset in every single Georgetown student. That's whether they're business, undergrad, grad, law, art history, does not matter. It also doesn't matter if they all start companies. We think they all should develop an entrepreneurial mindset that they can use no matter what career path they choose. So we achieve that through a variety of coursework and co-curricular activities, pitch competitions, mentors, incubators, all kinds of internship programs and different things similar to some other schools. The second part of our mission is to actively support the growth of alumni-led ventures. So if you've come through Georgetown, it doesn't matter how long ago you graduated, if you're trying to start a company, we want to be there to help. And we have a venture lab, we have an angel network, we have mentoring and coaching and all kinds of resources available to support those alumni who do actively start companies. We're launching a new virtual accelerator in the next few weeks. There's another example of that. The third part of our mission is to leverage that power of entrepreneurship to impact the world beyond Georgetown. Through that, we have programs, whether it's serving returning citizens coming out of prison, teaching them business and entrepreneurial skills through our Pivot program. We have a program offering an entrepreneurship and business certificate to wounded veterans in partnership with the Dog Tag Bakery, which was founded by one of our Jesuit priests in the Georgetown neighborhood. We have international training and economic development in the region, all kinds of ways we try to use entrepreneurship to make the world a better place. So we're having fun. We've been at it a little over 10 years. And I love working with the business community and our fellow universities, and happy to be here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you for being my boss for the last 7 years. I'm an entrepreneur in residence at Jeff Center. So thank you for that. And then last but not least, we have Tommy White with American University. Tommy.
Great. Thank you all so much for, again, for hosting us and having us here today. Boy, I'm not really sure what more I can add to that. You guys really covered the gamut here in terms of all the things that you do here. I would say, if our overriding theme for us is entrepreneurship should be viewed as experiential learning. And that's a main driver that we try to focus on in our programs at American University. So our major sort of purpose is like what we've heard already, which is to be a catalyst for innovation and entrepreneur thinking across campus. We do that through research, our curriculum programs. We got both minors and specializations in entrepreneurship. We have graduate certificate programs. And we have the AUCI incubator, which is where really a lot of the action takes place. This incubator is a program on campus. We have our own space, and it's really to work with students, undergrads and grads, to launch business companies and to provide them the resources to help them do that. So we have physical space, which is great, right on the campus, as I said, which is wonderful for them, 24-hour access for students, over 2,000 square feet for them. We've got faculty who work with them, mentors, coaches. We provide them a little bit of seed capital to get them going, working with our networks of folks in the area. We put on different types of demo days and showcase days for them. We have a program called Startup and Standout, which is a campus-wide program that leads to a couple pitch competitions we have called Meaningful Change Pitch Competition. We're also a cross-campus initiative, which I love. You know, even though we're housed out of the business school, we work with all the different schools. Washington College of Law has been a great partner with us. They have an intellectual property clinic there. They have an entrepreneur legal clinic that's been great. Our tax center in the business school works with us. The social impact group in our School of International Studies, the biotech group in CAS, computer science departments have all just been wonderful partners for us to work with. And over half of our founders are not coming out of the business school, which we just love. And just about half of them are female and or minority entrepreneurs. So we're super glad to see that. We're the young ones here. We've launched our program 6 years ago. So I think we're the baby in the room. But we've had a lot of success. We've had over 100 ventures come through the incubator. We try to have around 20 in at any one time in terms of working with them. We've had some great success. We've had cumulative revenue from our ventures have been about $4 million. They've raised over $2 million. And that's while they're in the incubator and just 1 year after graduation. If we were to add some more numbers on top of that after they've left, the numbers would be closer to 20 million than 5 million. We are an education incubator first, which is, I think, our purpose here for all of us, which is to provide that experiential learning. And if they fail, you know, nobody wants to fail, but that's okay, right? This is an environment in which they can do that. And we already have alumni coming back who are starting their second and third venture, which is great to see that after that. But we love seeing commercial success also, and we're obviously proud along that way. Finally, we all like the rankings, and we're super excited for things that we've been able to accomplish in just our short time. In 2020, we were ranked in the top 50 best undergraduate programs by Princeton Review and Entrepreneur Magazine. This year, top 50 for graduate programs. And we've also, for the first time, AU was ranked number 35 for innovation by US News and World Report. So we're very happy to see that recognition for us. Looking forward to a great discussion. So thank you.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Congratulations on everything you guys are doing. I've learned so much already, and we need to spread the word about all the great things that this group is doing. I'll turn it over to my partner here, Anthony Millen. Anthony?
Great. Thank you, Tien, and thank you, everybody, for those great introductions. What I'd like to do with this part of the discussion is really explore where we've come as an ecosystem, kind of where we are today, and where you guys see us going to and would like to see us going to. So, you know, starting off, everyone has been involved in different ways in the regional ecosystem. How have you seen things change over the last several years, and what has kind of excited you the most in terms of what you're seeing in this evolution that we're going through in our region from an entrepreneurship and innovation point of view? And you know, maybe we can start with Holly, and then we can just kind of, people can jump in.
Sure. So I would say in my tenure with the Entrepreneurship Center, which is about 8 years now, I mean, there's just more opportunity in this region. You know, there's a lot of accelerators and incubators that our students can kind of graduate to and go to. And so that has certainly grown in the region. I should also mention that at the Dingman Center, we run the Dingman Center Angel Investor Network. It's been around since roughly 2005, but very active since 2010. And since then, we've invested over 16 million in Mid-Atlantic startups. And so that pipeline it grows every year. And even in COVID, it hasn't, slumped that much. So when I first came 8 years ago, deal flow was a little more difficult. Deal flow is pretty strong, I would say, in the past, 5 years or so. So Certainly, I would say, growth has been a theme over the past few years.
Great. Thank you.
If I could add in, I would say that entrepreneurship in this region has basically had four phases over the last 40 years. Phase one was the development of the government contract community in the 70s and 80s as a response to, basically our folks in Northern Virginia figured out how to build the nuclear weapons and the space program while the folks out in the West Coast actually built them. The second phase was the telecom boom, otherwise known as the first internet bubble. We were very much in the middle of that, largely because the infrastructure for the telecom industry that created the internet basically was created here through regulation. Companies like MCI and Sprint, AOL was here, the internet backbone's here. And then our region diverged away from the next big technology trend, which was Web 2.0, largely because of 9/11, and our region doubled down on homeland security, particularly cybersecurity, data sciences, and so forth. And now you've got a fourth phase, which I think is really hallmarked by the ascendancy of local tech incumbents, companies like Cvent and others that have achieved national prominence at the same time that Amazon located here. And the Amazon location here, I think, is very much a bellwether event for how far the region's entrepreneurial ecosystem has come. Because again, I think that I mentioned this earlier, having been part of the effort to attract them here, they were initially highly skeptical that they would be able to find the kind of talent and the kind of people necessary to have an innovation-driven entrepreneurial company here in Northern Virginia. Not only did they find that, but located it here. And so I think that what you have now is, whether it's talking about startup formation, entrepreneurial education, or supporting larger business formation, we have a much more robust and diverse entrepreneurial ecosystem that includes new media, government contracting, biotech, technology startups, and others that frankly has been very resilient and probably better than many people appreciate.
Man, that guy should have his own podcast, or maybe he should write some of his own op-eds.
Thank you for that, Jeff. There's a reason why I keep you around. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll get right on that.
Awesome. No, Jonathan, love hearing what you have to say. I do appreciate it, actually, when I read your writings. But I'll just add a couple of things. I think this region benefits tremendously from the powerful magnet that DC has had forever, which is to attract young people who want to change the world, right? Those are the people that often are the ones enrolling in our universities. Maybe they come here for government jobs or the global NGO community. They're people that want to make the world a better place. They come to DC. This is a global hub for that. Our universities attract them. We turn them out. Many of them maybe start in some kind of government-related or social impact type organization, but at some point they learn about entrepreneurship and they say, hey, maybe that's a way I can make a difference in the world. And over the last 10 or 15 years, especially the last 10 years, we've seen more and more of these startups in the city, right? Not just in Northern Virginia or Maryland kind of thing. Like there's a more global, diverse kind of network of these people who want to change the world, and starting a company is a way to do it, or going to work for a startup. So the fact that we have this growing startup hub and ecosystem here, it's great. We are one of the cities that people want to be in, and they want to make the world better, and entrepreneurship is going to thrive because of that.
I think there's also a positive, healthy competition between the local cities and local areas for this too. I mean, entrepreneurship is about creating opportunity, creating jobs, and Alexandria, which is where I live, is doing all kinds of neat things to attract startups and employers here. Arlington is, downtown DC, Bethesda and other places, and that's been real healthy too for the region to look at these different things, because everyone wants to have the best talent come to where they are, and we're all close enough that they all work together. But there's also, I think, some healthy competition between the areas that again makes everything rise to the top.
Well, what I've seen is that the government actually has started to work with and help small businesses with financing. And we've seen that with the pandemic, with all of the different grants that the District of Columbia has issued to help the restaurant industry, the retail industry, any kind of startups, and that never happened before. So, small businesses were always financed out of the owner's pocket.
I think Carl's absolutely right. I will tell you, as recently as yesterday, I had a conversation with a policymaker about exactly this. And I was asked, well, what should we be doing about COVID or post-COVID, and my number one advice was you got to figure out how to launch and provide capital to relaunch small businesses, restaurants, and so forth. Because the reality is that they're the backbone of our local economy. They're all entrepreneurial people. And without capital and frankly some assistance working with the bankruptcy code, we're not going to get this economy going. And that's really where government should play. You're exactly right, Carl. It's a big opportunity. It really is important.
I think there's been a huge shift within universities as well. So looking at when I first got down here in DC and started working in the startup area with universities, entrepreneurship was almost a dirty word with a lot of professors. And nowadays it's become much more accepted, and there's a lot more research and professors and students who are interested in taking their ideas and trying to make sure that they have some kind of impact, whether commercial or societal. So I think that's been a big change.
I think it's interesting that this group, if I'm not mistaken, none of the university representatives here have a PhD or a tenured faculty role, right? I think that's part of that shift. Right? What's more entrepreneur than tenure, right?
Hey, we'll talk about that later. I'm more established here than I want a lot of people to know. But your point is well taken, Jeff. We're all entrepreneurs first.
In terms of COVID that it's been brought up, how have what's been the impact in terms of programs, the student, faculty, and community entrepreneurs that you've been working with? There's been so many impacts, but what have you kind of experienced, and the communities you work with have experienced with COVID, and what kinds of things have you adjusted to do to help support that?
Well, I'll go with that. Let me tell you, COVID has driven us all to work remotely and virtually. So we're on Zoom calls basically all day. In all of 2019, my center worked with 600 clients, and that includes faculty, students, and small businesses throughout the metropolitan Washington area, primarily focusing on Washington-based businesses. Right now, and I'm looking at the report that I ran on Monday afternoon from my EDMIS in Economic Development Management Information System through the SBA. We have a partnership. SBA funds small business development centers at colleges and universities across the country and the other territories. So far, we worked with 762 small businesses since March of this year, 2020. 762. That's 162 more than we did in all of last year. So you see there's a big need for that. We've done 52 webinars and had over 1,400 people attend. And we still have 6 webinars to go before we go on winter break.
So Tiana and Anthony, I see more than anything else, COVID has created an enormous social crucible through which issues of equality and access have never been more profound. I mean, whether it's going to be access to this vaccine or who gets good health care or who gets access to capital to start businesses or education, I've never seen a moment in time, and I was alive in the 60s, when issues of equity have actually been so forced into the beginning, in the middle of conversations. And I've never seen, to be honest, I've never seen white men more interested and engaged in a truly sincere way in addressing these issues. And so what I really believe is that COVID is a moment in time where our economy is actually remaking itself in real time, and how we serve entrepreneurs and who we work with entrepreneurs and the mind map for what is an entrepreneur is going to be changed forever. I mean, Carl, for example, I think that what you're seeing in small businesses, I think we're all seeing it. And I think it's a great opportunity for the nation, for our region, because it's so diverse, but it's also a big responsibility, because if we don't get it right, a lot of people are going to be really disappointed. We're going to lose a lot of credibility if it's all just another generation of people talking about equity and not doing anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's why I think forums like this are very important because it brings us all together, and we can discuss these issues and figure out how to work together to make it right. Because I'm spending, and my team is spending countless hours working with these small businesses to make sure that we help them generate revenue in this, trying COVID pandemic environment where the government is saying you have to shut down or you have to minimize the number of people in your facility, et cetera, et cetera. This has a broad impact, not just on a business owner, but their family and the community at large, our tax base and everything else.
I think one thing I've seen that I think has been pretty fascinating to see is that the folks I've been working with and some of the ventures I've been working with, they're finally learning how to deep dive, to really have to peel away the layers of the onion now, to really understand their business model and to change. And they're challenging all these assumptions that they no matter how many times I tried to tell them to challenge it, they wouldn't. And this is, I think, teaching a new mindset here that, that you've got to really understand everything about your business model, your customers, and really, solving that pain point. And the pain points have changed. And so how do you actually do that? And I think that process of thinking deeper, I've seen that come out with lots and lots of folks I'm working with. So I view that as a kind of a good positive for now business models going forward, that they will challenge assumptions more, will become more creative to really make sure they understand what that pain point is for their customers and come up with the solutions to deal with it.
You're exactly right. This is something that we've seen with the Tandem Product Academy, and frankly, the fact that we're all together on Zoom bears this out. There's never been a moment in time where you're more rewarded for product market fit and more penalized if you don't have it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all on Zoom right now because they got it exactly right in a moment when Microsoft Teams and Skype didn't. And that's the other thing I see. I'm sure you're seeing this too in the business plans, people much more mature. Look, one of the reasons why our community has grown as well as it has is because Washington, D.C. entrepreneurs know how to find money rather than taking it for granted. They're much more acculturated with they're scrappier. And this is a moment where, we all teach our students this. The greatest companies have started our recessions, and we point to Google and other companies and Sun Microsystems, all the rest of it. It's absolutely true. Why? Because you have to really get the right to launch a company when times are tough. So you're right. The startups are going to come out of this are going to be much better situated than startups come in at a time when it's easy. Because when it's easy, everybody does it, and then they fail when it gets hard. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I have like 20 counselors that work for me, tax attorney, intellectual property attorney, CPAs. Everybody has an MBA or better. But what I'm seeing is that they're asking more deeper and probing questions of the clients that are coming into our program. And like you said, we're going to see better companies as a result of the questions that are asked of the companies, and then how we work with the counselors. We're working together with talking about the questions that we're asking the companies that we're working with, and it's a very collegial environment where we're trying to make each other better and our businesses better at the same time.
So there are clearly a lot of disadvantages, of course, going completely virtual. But what we've really tried to do is to make the most of some of the advantages that going virtual allows you to do. So Carl was mentioning about how he's able to reach more clients because we're virtual. We've also found that we've been able to serve groups that we may not have been able to serve before. We've become much more scalable. We're able to work with countries or other universities or organizations that in the past were maybe too small for us to work with because they didn't have a critical mass for us to go visit them or whatever. But now we can, because there's geographic borders are starting to break down and if anyone can get on Zoom, we've been actually able to dramatically increase the number of people that we're serving. And also, we've been able to draw on a much larger group of mentors and expertise because now we can pull an alum from California or Australia or whatever, if they've got what we need, and bring them to the people we're serving. So once we go back to being in person, hopefully someday soon, there's still a lot of stuff that we've learned from this experience that we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, I'll add one more point, and that's this whole COVID experience has taught everybody in our community how to deal with disruption. Disruption changes mindsets. It certainly creates tons of entrepreneurial opportunity. But one thing that I've seen is a lot of our students who maybe before this had felt like they kind of had a career path in mind, they were going to do something more traditional. They've now realized that, hey, life can change at any moment. I want to spend my time doing something meaningful. And so we've had actually an uptick of students interested in entrepreneurial careers. So that's hopefully a good sign.
There is so many challenges and so much strengths that as a group you're able to bring to startups and entrepreneurs and founders in the region. If you had to look at kind of the tools that you think most help these startups de-risk, particularly during these trying times, what are some of the things that you kind of specifically play in helping them de-risk and move their companies forward?
I think the single most important thing that we do is get the students and the entrepreneurs to get outside of the building, so to speak, right? To use that phrase, instead of just sitting inside their room or their lab and just whiteboarding stuff, getting them to talk to potential customers. I think that's the most valuable thing that we've been able to provide to get them outside their comfort zone. Because otherwise, as everybody on this call knows, they start building stuff that nobody really wants, and they've really got to talk to those customers first to make sure that it's something worth spending their time on.
One of the most amusing experiences I have as an educator is when I teach MBA students entrepreneurship. I'll ask them in the first class, let's say, where does growth come from? And I get some wildly correct academic answers. I mean, just tremendous answers. And I list them a while, so you know where growth comes from? More people want your stuff than you currently can deliver. Period, end of story. If people want your stuff, you have growth. If people don't want your stuff, you have a lab experiment. And we use different, it's so blunt, but it's so true. The market speaks. I mean, to the point where I actually have my students, when it comes time for grade and I don't grade them, I give them each a nominal $100 and say, you decide which is the best business plan. They get the A. Students get wildly upset. It's like, guess what? That's what it means to do an entrepreneurial business. The market speaks, not your professor. It doesn't matter if I like the document. What do people with money think? And unfortunately, entrepreneurship is a great opportunity to change the world. But you're only able to change the world if you can bend people to your will. It's a very binary thing. And that's really, I think, the crucible, whether it's start a methodology or a tandem or it's education or helping vets, all different things we're doing it. Unless you've really taught somebody how to be able to be comfortable with that blunt truth of it, we're not serving them well. But I think we do all treat them to the blunt truth of it in ways that they hear so that they're actually able to get out and get after it, which is why this region's so resilient and which is why I think we're all optimistic that as the vaccine becomes ubiquitous, this region's going to lead the rest of the country in growth and not lag.
I'm going to piggyback on what you said about understanding your customer and what they want and providing that to them, and that's growth. In a simplistic, very simplistic way, many years ago, I was a street vendor in New York City where I grew up. And we sold perfume and cologne, not the fake stuff, the real stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Not if you like polo, you'll like Molo, not that.
There you go.
Exact
I'm a New Yorker too. I probably bought from you.
Yeah, hey, there you go.
Right.
But here you go. I was up there recently, and you know what the street vendors were selling? PPE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Masks, gloves, shields, coats, the socks that go over your shoes. That's what they were selling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because they understand that this is what the customer is buying right now. They weren't buying cell phone cases and batteries and all that. They're buying masks and shields and gloves. So that's what we teach our vendors when they come in to work with us, that you have to be selling something that the consumer wants. Because if you're not, it's a great idea, but you're not going to make any sales.
Last question for the segment, and Holly, I'm going to have you kind of lead us off on this, is looking forward now. We've heard about some of the different stages of the ecosystem in terms of the different stages of growth that it's gone through. If you look forward a few years, what would you like to see? Where would you like to see some of the big changes in our ecosystem, and what do you see as some of the steps we need to be thinking about over the next 12 to 24 months to arrive at that place?
Well, obviously, like I spoke in the beginning, we have a pretty big focus on minority founders. So I hope the growth is there. I hope the change is there. We've worked long and hard to find funding sources for our female-led companies or underrepresented companies, and that's always been a challenge. It's been a lot easier since summer 2020. There's a lot more opportunity that's popping up for those founders. They're creative. They are solving problems in real ways, some of these women and underrepresented founders. And so I hope the growth is there. I think it will be. We're already making more connections for some of those companies, and just looking at Dingman Center Angels, just in the last meeting, looking at, a room full of male investors that are looking at a company for breastfeeding, and everyone leaning in and saying this is important, and she's got a market and she's making money. So I think that's, where I hope the growth will be. I think the growth will be. And then kind of like others have said, and I think Jeff said it and others, with the students, we are seeing a lot more focus on social venture in a real way. So moving out of sort of nonprofit, starting student clubs and things like that. They're really pursuing, a triple bottom line business model, more so than I think we saw at Maryland probably before. So I think with social venture, there'll be a lot of growth and opportunity for those founders, in the next 24 months, hopefully.
Thank you. Anybody else want to just add final thoughts to this last segment?
I think that we are in the middle of two big technological trends that are going to shape a lot of the opportunities that we all see. One was before COVID and is accelerating, the other is post-COVID. The first one is the emergence and continued emergence of artificial intelligence and robotics, both based upon data science. It's basically the equivalent of the steam power and what happened to the industrialization of the 1800s. And it's continuing. And frankly, a lot of the social dislocation that we're facing is driven by whether or not people are going to be able to successfully work with machine learning. The other trend, I think, is going to be healthcare. Make no mistake, what happened with COVID is 9/11 times 1,000. If you run the math, it's 9/11 times 1,000 right now as we speak, and it's going to continue. We are going to spend the next 20 years of our society looking backwards at this period of time, waiting for the next pandemic. Our healthcare system is going to be ready for the next pandemic, but it's also going to create much greater interest in healthcare. And make no mistake, both of the two leading vaccines now came out because of recent improvements in biotechnology that wouldn't have happened. There wouldn't be a vaccine right now if it was traditional virus-based vaccines. So we are literally at a moment right now where both of those trends are going to be enormous. And not surprisingly, both of them are areas where our region has many more leading people than any place in the country. So what you see is that we've got enormous opportunity, small businesses, the backbone of our community. We've got tech commercialization, we've got entrepreneurship. This is, I think, while we're going to be able, if we get it right, to skate along these two big waves and really get our mojo. Really get our mojo. It's a big opportunity for all of us.
Well, Jim, anything to add to that?
Well, I'll piggyback off what both Jonathan and Holly said. Social ventures, med tech, and the third thing I'd put in there is cybersecurity or defense tech kind of stuff. Those are the strengths I think that we have in our region. And what I'm trying to do at GW is I'm a little bit concerned that we may have this overreaction to what's happening with kind of remote learning and all this stuff that, this is going to be the future. And we forget that actually places do matter. And that's one of the reasons why I'm working on this innovation district initiative at GW, is that this is going to pass at some point. We will still have a need to be doing research in a lab. We're still going to need to be doing clinical trials with patients. So let's not forget that, there's some immediate urgent problems that we have to deal with now, but also let's start thinking about what do we do when we start getting back to normal. And that's the medtech, social ventures, and cybersecurity stuff, I think, is crucial for us to make sure we have the infrastructure in place to continue those trends.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for all of that tremendous insight from the first segment of our monthly blend today. And now I'm going to hand it back to Tien.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you to our roundtable for all of your great feedback. So our listener base is entrepreneurs, business leaders, investors, and people who are interested in the DMV ecosystem and how they can improve the DMV ecosystem. And since we have a great panel of educators, among other things, we would be remiss if we didn't ask you guys to share one key learning and or one key teaching that you've experienced or that you suggest, in which we can get the various parties, the geographic boundaries destroyed and the silos destroyed, so people can work together and make this area, as one of you had said earlier, post-COVID, #1 in the country. So I'd like to start with the sole PhD on this panel, Jonathan Aberman. Dr. Aberman, would you like to weigh in on a key learning and a key teaching?
The key learning and the key teaching are exactly the same. One of the biggest reasons why this region has not really ever seen itself as an entrepreneur community is because we allow ourselves to silo it by defining it differently depending on where you sit. Government contractors are just as entrepreneurial as somebody doing a social media startup, or just as entrepreneurial as somebody doing a social startup, is just as entrepreneurial as somebody doing a small business like a restaurant. And the sooner that we understand that entrepreneurial behavior is changing the world to your bidding by gathering resources because you're fearless, the faster we'll grow.
And I would like to say the same thing, that is one and the same: networking. We're networking. We teach our clients that networking is king, because if you don't have a network, you're never going to really grow. And so we teach networking. I day and night, every session, I talk about networking because it is critical to your success.
Absolutely. Jeff?
There's a lot of fun things going on. I think a couple of things I'll just point out. We have experienced so much growth in internship opportunities because of the pandemic. Virtual internships open up the door to students having these experiences anywhere in the world, and not just nearby, and including during the school year, right? During the semester, they can spend a few hours a week helping a client, helping a startup, helping a venture firm that doesn't have to be located here. But we've also found bigger organizations wanting to have students doing entrepreneurial projects to help them solve problems. And 2 examples is we have a class we call Hacking for Defense, where several different defense agencies have our students kind of working on real world problems that require entrepreneurial thinking. And we're about to launch a new course called Hacking for Diplomacy, which is going to be working with the U.S. State Department on problems they have. So these are huge bureaucratic government agencies that recognize a need for entrepreneurial thinking, and that's a good sign. And of course, we all have students who need that kind of experience and can utilize their innovative thinking to help solve those real world problems.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Holly, how about you?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about product market fit, so I'll move off of that for a second here. But, just on the execution side of things, one of the things that I do in my entrepreneurship classes, there's a couple just websites out there that lists hundreds of free off-the-shelf tools that students can use anybody can use anything from finance to marketing to, CRM packages, all these things. And I have them go out there and they have to do research and find like 5 very useful things that they didn't know about before that they can now use in their business model. And the eyes just open up, right? Because all they use is Google Docs, and that's about it, right? And so they've got this eye-opening of all these things out there. So it's kind of what you don't know, and really forcing them to look and see there's a I mean, when we started our company, some of these older folks in the room here, we didn't have any of this stuff out there, right? There's a lot of things out there that people can use for free to keep their, bootstrap, keep their monies down, and they default to what's out there. And I would encourage folks, and when we get to the execution side of things, to really look out there and don't just settle. And there's a lot of choices out there, cool things that people can use to improve their business models.
Awesome. Thank you, Tommy. How about you, Holly? Any key learnings or teachings?
Yeah, I think certainly falling in love with the problem still rings true. Like our best entrepreneurs at Maryland, they really are laser focused on problem solving and really not building the solution. But I'll give a soft skill about, learning. I think we are always telling our student entrepreneurs that entrepreneurship can be uncomfortable. And I think they've really learned that through COVID. Their days have been totally changed. The way they're learning and in class and engaging with, their classmates is totally different, and they're really uncomfortable. But that's part of the game. And they're adaptable, and they're learning resilience and all of those skills they need to succeed.
Awesome. Thank you. How about Jim Chong?
I think the coolest thing that I've learned, having been doing this academic entrepreneurship for maybe the last 14 years or so, is that making that mind shift from being a VC whose job was to kind of think that I knew what was going to be successful and what wasn't, and then having a much more open mind working in the university environment. You get some of these crazy ideas coming in from students, and you're like, that's never going to work, right? And then they go out and they make it work, and you're like, God, I am getting old. I just don't get it. What is this social media stuff? What is this other stuff? So for me, it's been really cool, and I've learned much more from my students, I think, than they've learned from me. But it's been a lot of fun, and so I'm just glad that I'm able to maybe bring some structure to their crazy ideas so that they can actually go out and vet them. So
that's awesome. We have a couple more questions, but one thing, I'd like to give you guys the opportunity to ask each other questions. I don't know how often the six of you get together, if you've ever been together, but I see you guys around town once in a while together at various events, but do any of you have any questions for each other?
No, I'll just echo, Tien. This isn't really a question, but I'll say that this group is quite collaborative. I do talk to each of these individuals for the most part on a regular basis. We sometimes run into each other at conferences, find ways to collaborate. Universities are often seen as being ultra competitive, and maybe in some levels they are, but my experience has been in the entrepreneurship world. Entrepreneurship educators, they don't see it as a zero-sum game where we're all fighting for a slice of the pie. For the most part, I don't know if I'm speaking for everybody here, but I know I spend enough time competing for resources and attention on my own campus to worry about kind of competing with other schools. The pie's growing for everybody. So we do find ways to work together. We've collaborated to create a region-wide business plan, pitch competition. I know Jim has done an amazing job kind of building out the whole hub for the I-Core program, or node, whichever the proper term is in that world. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things going on. Our entrepreneurship education programs kind of come together and love to help each other out.
Just going to say that I look forward to working with all of you guys. So.
Yeah, I met Carl before, and I can promise you right now, as soon as we're off this phone, he's got a LinkedIn invitation, right? And same with Tommy. I don't know if we've talked before. I just tell you, it's a great example of what Jeff's talking about. Before times, it feels like a science fiction novel, like a Cormac McCarthy book or something, as we stagger through the cold and the bridge or the road, right? But we would have regular breakfast. Jim and Jeff would come sometimes, and folks from Maryland, Dean Chang, and so forth. And I remember at one of the breakfasts, Jim said, "Hey, you know what? We should do an I-Core node here." Remember that, Jim? And it was just like, yeah, let's do it. And that's a great example of how we work together. And it is really interesting to me because the community talks about everybody has to cooperate. All business community has to cooperate. And the reality is no, the politicians and everybody, they don't have to cooperate. But Tommy's point is what we need to do is collaborate while we compete, because we have to compete because at the end of the day, we all have to justify why we need to exist. If we're not all serving students in some unique way, there's no reason for institutions to exist, right? So we're competing, but the reality is that there's enough different places where we can work together on events or iCore or doing our own thing with awareness of what we're doing. Like I'm doing with Tandem with Tien and folks, that's sort of post-accelerator stuff, right? It's a niche that needed to be filled. It's helpful, and I think that you're absolutely right, Jeff. You made the point earlier about, or I think it was you, maybe it was Tommy, but here are people come here to work to change the world. And I was really struck by that comment because it echoes something that a fellow named Mike Daniels said to me years ago. Mike, many of you may have run across, is that one of the deans that really built the government contract industry here, helped start the Northern Virginia Technology Council, was the chairman of Network Solutions. And he said to me one day, he said, Jonathan, the reality is that people go to Silicon Valley to get rich, and people come to Washington, D.C. to change the world. And I always thought to myself how apt that was, and we see that every day, which is why I think comparing my life when I was up in New York before I came down here, why you can have a group of people like this together or in a conversation, knowing that we're trying to make our individual masters happy, but at the end of the day, we look out for each other. And that is the biggest difference between this region and doing business in other parts of the country. It's not just an act. We really like each other. I've said it. It's out there.
Yeah, and just to sort of fulfill Tien's request, I know we at University of Maryland, there's been much more collaboration, like real, not just talk of it, like people actually working together since we've gone virtual. And I just wonder if that's happening at other universities. It's certainly happening at Maryland.
Well, I'll tell you that on my end, sitting here, not just as an entrepreneur, but also an educator, but also as a dean with 50 or so faculty, the change to online education and Zoom and all the rest of it required a level of collective activity that I think was really surprising even to the faculty and to the students. And because you had to improvise consistently, and which is another theme that we've come out in. So I think that I think we learned a lot about ourselves and how to get things done. I wonder, to Jim's point, I agree with him, by the way. I think, I don't know about you, but as soon as I can give somebody a non-creepy hug again will be a great moment. I just miss human contact. Wouldn't you just like to hug somebody or not instead of this elbow thing? So I think Jim's right that we're going to want to be together again. I just hope we don't lose this other virtual stuff that like Jeff's pointed to, because it's just been such a force multiplier in our ability to collaborate more efficiently. Like do this. We didn't have to drive across town, de-traffic, we're together for an hour, boom, it's done, it's out. And I think in a lot of ways it's as impactful, if not more impactful, than a physical meeting or a panel over breakfast. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm really seeing. And
That's
I hope
right. Whenever we tried to get together, we've always had to figure out what part of town are we going to meet in, right? It's always a negotiation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we succeeded more than we failed, thank God. But you're exactly right.
Yeah, I think the key thing is to really triage what it is that needs to be done in person, what it is that can be done better in this kind of a format. And I think there's a lot of stuff that does have to be done in person, but so much of what we had done in the past was such a waste of time. I mean, I like this format better, and then let's go get drinks sometime in person later on.
I'll tell you a funny story. You'll all relate to this because you all are doing this as well. I've gotten so used to Zoom. I did an advisory session for a company or a startup a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching them all in the group dynamic, and it was clear that one of them was a passive-aggressive naysayer. It was absolutely obvious to me. I could see it. I could watch the group dynamic. It was like watching the Brady Bunch together with a dysfunctional Alice in the middle. And I met with them a week later, and that person was gone. And they said, "We got some news for you." I said, "You fired him, didn't you?" He said, "How did you know?" I said, "Because it was obvious." And I just thought that was a really interesting moment that I've gotten to the point where the Zoom was not really relevant anymore to watching human behavior. And to Jim's point, I think we've now gotten so comfortable with the modalities, we're able to connect with people even though we're on a video screen. And that's I think that's really interesting.
I don't know. My fears with, the Gen Z and the younger millennials, who've grown up with technology, that they're missing out on on the, what it means to have face-to-face and what it means to build relationships that way. We're not building relationships in this environment. We're communicating, we're having sessions, but like you said, when I hit the leave button in my far right corner here, I can't go run over and talk to Jonathan and say, hey, it was really nice meeting you. When can we get together for a cup of coffee? I'd like to learn more about your program. We can go to a breakout room. I guess, Tian, can you send us to a breakout room for a minute? But we're losing that. And this group who doesn't know how important that is because they've just grown up with technology and hanging out on their computers, as we know, it's already hard enough to get them face to face. Someone was talking about earlier about talking to customers and meeting their customers. It was already hard to do that. I think it's going to be even more challenging to do that now because we can default back to this. And we know how important it is for those things. And I think it's going to be an uphill battle to get back into that and teach this group how important it is to have those moments with it. So I kind of go back. I'm sort of on the other side of that a little bit, but I think it's just so important. I'm just kind of echoing what Jim was saying earlier.
That's a great point, Tommy. I agree. I think we're going to have to come up with new curricula to teach our next generation of leaders how to network. To Carl's point, right? There's communicating, and then there's relationship building. So that's a soft skill that's going to have to be developed. So.
Just send them all to the next CONNECTpreneur event in person. They'll figure out how to network.
Yeah.
So we get 50 free tickets, right, for that one. So then we can come to it, right?
We're going to do it at AU and at Georgetown too. So we've done them at GW. We've done them at Maryland. Yep, we've done them at Maryland. Obviously, we'll do one at Howard too, Carl. So
thank you.
This is why I refer to TN as the Kevin Bacon of the tech community.
Well, he's a lot better looking.
Not with the hair, Mitty. No, you're looking really fly these days. I find myself strangely drawn to you.
I'm glad we can edit all this stuff later.
I want it in. I want that to stay in. I will be checking.
Right. Well, before I turn over to Anthony for closing remarks, I definitely want to look. We're all here to network, connect, improve the region. So if you guys could all just kind of go around the horn. How can our audience get involved with your programs? What is it? What are your sort of things that you're looking for that maybe someone who's listening can contact you with, with some value add stuff?
Yeah, that's a great one. I'll jump in. So the easy way to learn about stuff at Georgetown, just check out our website, eShip. You don't even have to learn how to spell the word entrepreneurship, just eship.georgetown.edu. And we have pitch competitions that are available to the public to watch. We'd love to have companies host interns, lots of different ways to interact. But yeah, if you check out our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, and that way you can learn all about what's going on in our program.
At Maryland, we're always looking for volunteers, founders and investors who are willing to really mentor and advise. And so we have a great website. It's called innovation.umd.edu that has all kinds of contacts from all across campus where, if you're out there and you're experienced, you could volunteer. So yeah, and that's probably the biggest way I think someone could get involved. But specifically with Dingman, if you are an investor and are looking for a really smart group to join, check out the Dingman Center Angels Investor Network.
Well, if you're a small business and need assistance, just go to our website, www.dcsbdc.org, dcsbdc.org. We start with DC, we end with DC. And we love to have you as a client. And anyone, if you want to get in touch with me, my number is 202-806-1551. And even though we're remote, I get a message as soon as you hang up the phone. So we're always available. And my email is real easy, carl.brown, BROWN, @howard.edu.
So I'll jump in. If you want to learn more about our programs, we've got programs both for entrepreneurs who want to join a program. Some of our, most of our events are open to the public. We have some programs that are just for GW students or faculty, but a lot of them are open to the public. Our URL is very similar to Holly's. It's innovation.gwu.edu. So it should be easy to remember both of ours. We have a newsletter. You can sign up there. We have over 13,000 subscribees. And we don't publish just stuff about GW. We publish stuff around the region. So it's a great resource for folks. We also have an online community. It's called the GW Innovation Exchange. I don't remember the URL, but just do a Google search and it should be the first thing that comes up. You can join that, and you're looking for some student interns, you want to find a project to work on, just sign up there and you'll be able to find it.
I'll go next. So yeah, student interns, we love to be able to put them out with startup companies in so many ways. If Gen Z is your market, we'd love to have entrepreneurs come into our classrooms and pitch, your products and services. We actually have feedback forms that we use and give back to the entrepreneurs on this. If you're raising money, if you're going out to financing in our entrepreneurship classes, along with our ventures in the incubator, we love you how to come in and practice your pitches. We give you some feedback on that too. So we like that sort of win-win from you all coming in, and the students just love hearing from entrepreneur stories. Again, we try to teach it, talk about it, grill it into them, but when they can hear the good and the bad and the ugly stories of what it's like, it's so important. So any companies that want to come in, just send me an email. You can find me, Tommy White, at Kogod pretty quickly, in LinkedIn or on our website at AU. Thank you.
And for me, if you're interested in what's going on at Marymount, check out marymount.edu or email me at jaberman@marymount.edu. If it's around community stuff, you want me to come and talk at an event, or you got an idea for a column of mine in the Business Journal, DM me at @jaberman. And I'll get back to you. As always, it's great to be a part of these things. Tien and Anthony, thanks a lot for including me.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I'll turn over to Anthony, who will have some closing remarks.
Yeah, great. Thank you. On behalf of Tien, I'd like to just thank everybody, Jim and Holly and Carl and Jeff and Jonathan and Tommy, for being on the Monthly Blend show today. The discussions were incredibly informative and valuable, and we learned so much from you, and we're sure our listeners will as well. And thank you also just for all of the leadership and initiatives that you have to help drive the ecosystem in our region forward. And so thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you.
To our viewers, our next show, we're going to be focusing on the regional accelerators. Great. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to thank Jim, Holly, Carl, Jeff, Jonathan, and Tommy for joining us as our guests on today's Monthly Blend. The discussions were so insightful and informative, and we learned so much listening to you all today, and we're sure that our viewers will as well. We also want to thank you for the tremendous leadership that you provide to our ecosystem and all of the initiatives that you are taking to continue to drive it forward. We look forward to seeing everybody next month, where our focus will be on accelerators in the DC metro region.